I'm putting a price target of $21 trillion on Bitcoin's market cap by 2030, which means it's about $1 million per Bitcoin, or about a 10x from here, an 8x from here, something like that. So a good company should do 2 or 3x or more than that. So if Bitcoin goes up 10x, they can go up 20x or 30x. Okay, that's by 2030. What about if we look at by 2040? Again, this is based off of the Congressional Budget's Office numbers. And by 2040, it puts Bitcoin at about a $289 trillion market cap, or $14 million per coin. And a good company should do 2, 3, or 5x that. So that's what we're looking for Bitcoin, and we're looking at even more for these really good companies. So for me, they're buys and holds. Now, I said good companies.
MicroStrategy to MetaPlanet, the high-risk, high-reward bet on Bitcoin's future. Mark Moss, entrepreneur, investor, and broadcaster, has been analyzing the relationship between Bitcoin and publicly traded Bitcoin Treasury companies like MetaPlanet and MicroStrategy. With Bitcoin trading at $109,382, Moss explains that these firms act as leveraged proxies for Bitcoin's performance, delivering bigger upside potential but also sharper risks. While Bitcoin typically follows its 4-year cycle, MetaPlanet has already weathered 12 mini-bear markets in just 18 months, averaging 32% drawdowns and plunging as much as 79% over 4 months. These declines are about 2.6 times more severe than Bitcoin's, with recoveries taking nearly 5 times longer, highlighting how volatility cuts both ways. Unlike Bitcoin, MetaPlanet shows less than 50% correlation with BTC itself, yet 55% correlation with MicroStrategy, underscoring the role of company-specific factors such as option issuance, capital raising, and Bitcoin premium shrinkage. MicroStrategy, while volatile, has seen drawdowns of 33 to 46%, still far less extreme than MetaPlanet's 70% plus drops. Across BTCTCs, losses of 50 to 80% in just 10 weeks have been common, outpacing Bitcoin's own volatility. Yet Moss remains highly bullish, projecting Bitcoin at $1 million by 2030 and $14 million by 2040. He argues that strong BTCTCs could multiply Bitcoin's returns to 5x, making them compelling long-term plays for investors willing to endure high volatility. Which Bitcoin treasury company would you bet on in the next big wave? MicroStrategy, MetaPlanet, or another? And what's your strategy? Turn on notifications and stay ahead of every move that could reshape your portfolio.
Well, what we want to do is we want to compare MetaPlanet and MicroStrategy. Why those? Because all the ones that I just showed you are like 4 or 5 months old. So we want to go back and have as much data as we can. So we'll look at these two that have some time. Like I said, we have about 18 months of time here. We have 5 years of time here. And what we see when we look at the data, we want to see what are the cycles. So Bitcoin typically moves in a 4-year cycle. What kind of cycles do these move into? And what's the correlation between Bitcoin, because Bitcoin isn't down that much right now, or is there correlation between each other? So first of all, let's look at MetaPlanet. All right, so it's the first one to duplicate the strategy. It's been around about, like I said, about 18 months. And so that's the one that's going to give us the most data to try to understand this. Now, in this chart, what we have are these pink areas, and the pink areas are the drawdowns. These are the bear markets. Again, we've had about 12 bear markets that have gone down by more than 20% in this time period in the last 18 months. And so you can see bear market, bear market, bear market, right? Bear market. We've had some big ones. I wanted to show you just that visually, but let's kind of break this down so we can see. Now, how long have they lasted? How severe have they been? Well, the average drawdown has been 32%. Pretty deep bear market. The average duration has been 20 days. However, that's just the average. There's ones longer and shorter. The most severe was 79%, and it lasted 119 days, so about 4 months, and that was last year from July to November of last year. So about 4 months and 80% drawdown. Much deeper and more severe than it is today, and it's lasted longer than what we have today. And it came back for huge returns. The shortest correction, 1 day, the longest correction, again, 120 days, 78% drawdown. The significant dips of 10 or more, we've seen 24 of those just in this time frame. 24. 12 of more than 20%. Again, average drawdown 21%, etc. Okay, but what we want to take a look at is to try to understand this a little bit better. And how correlated are they? How could we tell when these things are going to happen? Well, there's a couple things that we can see. So first of all, we can see that MetaPlanet averages 2.6 times the severity of Bitcoin's drawdown. So we like these companies, I like these companies, because they should return 2, 3, 5 times what Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin goes up 10 times, these should go up 20, 30, or 50 times. I like that. But volatility works both ways. So if Bitcoin goes down 2 times, if it goes down 1 time, they can go down 2 times, 3 times, 5 times. You see how that works? And so they're currently about 2.6 times the severity, both to the upside and to the downside. In July to November 2024, when MetaPlanet went down 78%, almost 79%, Bitcoin's multiple only went down 20 to 26%. So Bitcoin went down 26%, MetaPlanet went down almost 79%. February to May 2025, MetaPlanet went down 54% versus, again, Bitcoin only went down as much as 28%. So again, about 2 times, 2.5 times. All right. Now, what about the speed and recovery? It's a lot slower. Spoiler, MetaPlanet's corrections are 4.8 times longer, so Bitcoin recovers much faster than it takes MetaPlanet. In duration, and recover 5.1 times slower than Bitcoin. So Bitcoin crashes and rebounds, and it takes a while for MetaPlanet to get back there. So a lot of people are like, well, I know Bitcoin hit its 120,000 price range, and now it's whatever 108, 110,000. So why are these companies so far down? Well, number one, because they draw down much more severely. Volatility works both ways. And 2, they don't bounce back as fast. Maximum duration of disparity, 120 days versus only 10 days. So Bitcoin only had, during the times they were synchronized, Bitcoin only took about 10 days to get back versus, again, MetaPlanet took 4 months to get back. In this July to November 2024 period, MetaPlanet's single-day, 119-day correction overlapped with 6 separate Bitcoin mini bear markets. So during that 120-day cycle, Bitcoin had 6 mini bear markets within that time period. So it's not super correlated with Bitcoin. As a matter of fact, I believe only 5 out of 12 have been correlated with Bitcoin's price. So if you're just looking at the Bitcoin price, trying to understand what's happening with these, you're going to completely miss out. They have their own company-specific factors, and when they do overlap, they get extended. Now, we know that Bitcoin has these 4-year cycles. So about every 4 years, Bitcoin has this cycle. What's happening with these companies is they have like 12 cycles in 1 year. All right, so we have to understand they're very, very cyclical. But what we can see from this data is what we've seen with MetaPlanet and these other companies' drawdowns. It's not near as severe as we've seen in the past. The last time we saw it had this severe of a drawdown, it went on to return over 1,000% returns, and it hasn't even been as long either. Now, if we compare MetaPlanet to MicroStrategy, we see a lot more interesting data. So for example, MetaPlanet wasn't very correlated to Bitcoin, less than 50%, but it's 55% correlated with each other, more than with Bitcoin itself. And if we look at some of the data here, we can see similar, but not as severe, and I'll explain why. In April to May of 2024, MicroStrategy went down 46%, while MetaPlanet had multiple 22 to 25% corrections. So again, now you have MicroStrategy drawing down, and MetaPlanet has many drawdowns within that. June to July 2024, MicroStrategy went down 33%, and MetaPlanet again had 24 to 25% corrections. August to September, MicroStrategy was down 40%, MetaPlanet was down 78%, so it had this amplification because it's more volatile.
Bitcoin at $1 million? Moss says BTCTCs could multiply that 5x. Mark Moss reveals that Bitcoin's volatility is both its strength and its greatest risk. Unlike the S&P 500, Bitcoin swings far more aggressively, rising higher in rallies but also plunging harder in corrections. Moss notes that companies like MicroStrategy and MetaPlanet act as leveraged Bitcoin plays, amplifying gains and losses. MicroStrategy typically moves nearly 2x Bitcoin's corrections, while MetaPlanet magnifies them 3 to 4 times. The reward potential, however, is striking. MetaPlanet has delivered a 3,000% return compared to MicroStrategy's 156%, though its drawdowns cut deeper and recoveries took nearly 3 times longer. To handle this risk, Moss recommends thinking of investments like a pyramid, allocating most capital to stable assets, some to moderate risk plays, and a small slice to high-risk moonshots like Bitcoin Treasury Companies, BTCTCs. BTCTCs. These firms move in rapid cycles, with MetaPlanet seeing 12 mini-bear markets in 1 year compared to Bitcoin's 4-year cycle. Moss believes strong BTCTCs can deliver 5x Bitcoin's returns, meaning a 10x move in Bitcoin could translate into 20x, 50x gains. The results are compelling. Since August 2020, MicroStrategy's Bitcoin strategy has driven its stock up more than 2,300%, with Bitcoin projected at $1 million by 2030 and $14 million by 2040. Moss views top BTCTCs as long-term, high-risk, high-reward opportunities. Let's get back to the interview.
Bitcoin is more volatile than the S&P 500. It means it goes up more, but it goes down more. Right? I showed you that. MicroStrategy is more volatile than Bitcoin. So it goes up almost 2 times Bitcoin. It goes down almost 2 times Bitcoin. MetaPlanet goes up 3 or 4 times Bitcoin, and it comes down 3 or 4 times Bitcoin, right? So they're more severe, and we can see that here in January to April, they were about parity. MicroStrategy and MetaPlanet pulled down about the same. If we look at a couple more data points here, and then I'm going to move on, but we can see that MicroStrategy amplifies Bitcoin's corrections by 1.9 times, and MetaPlanet amplifies Bitcoin's corrections by 2 times. So it's a little more volatile. It's going to make you more money on the up, but you're also going to be having bigger drawdowns on the way down. MetaPlanet's 15 times outperformance over MicroStrategy comes with surprisingly modest additional volatility risk. So the volatility hasn't changed that much, but it outperforms. Again, it returned 3,000% versus MicroStrategy returning 156%. MetaPlanet average drawdown 32%, MicroStrategy's 27%. So to understand volatility, you have to understand the downside and the upside. Maximum drawdowns, MetaPlanet 78, MicroStrategy 49. But the recovery time was different. Again, MetaPlanet took 2.7 times longer to recover than MicroStrategy. So what happens is you want to think about your volatility and your risk, and you kind of want to think about it like this, almost like a pyramid. And so the money that you don't want to have severe drawdowns, a big majority of it's going to go right here. Now, I might have a little bit of room for risk. I can have a little bit of drawdown, so I might put a little bit of money here, and then I'm going to take some moonshots, and I'm going to put a couple positions up here, and I know they're going to be super volatile, but they can make huge returns. And that's exactly how these Bitcoin Treasury companies are. Now, what comes next? That's the question on everybody's mind. Are these companies coming back? Was it a blow off top that never comes back? Well, we have to understand that they're cyclical in nature. All right, so I just showed you that instead of 1 cycle every 4 years, they're having like 12 cycles every 1 year, right? So they're cyclical in nature. We know that they're 2 to 5 times more volatile than Bitcoin or than each other, and it works in both directions. But I do believe, and I'm going to show you why, I do believe the good companies, the good Bitcoin Treasury companies, should 2 to 5x Bitcoin. So again, if Bitcoin goes up 10x in the next 5 years, these should go up 20 times, 30 times, or 50 times in the next 5 years. So the next question is, what's going to happen with Bitcoin? Well, let's take a look at that. So here's a couple charts I have. This is a chart that I got from Strategy's Q2 earnings call. And this is Michael Saylor put this together. And this is not his forecast for Bitcoin. This is all the top research analysts predicting for Bitcoin. Now what we can see is Barclays gives it an end of the year price target of 116, Bernstein 200, BTIG Compass 150, Wainwright 225, Maxim 235. Basically, nobody knows. But they're all taking educated guesses. If we average this all up, it puts an end of the year price target of 168, 170,000. So maybe Bitcoin goes up 50%, 60% by the end of the year. And these companies, 2, 3, 5 times more volatile, could go up way more. But who cares about the end of the year? Where's Bitcoin going to be in 5 years and 15 years? That's the question you should be asking yourself. So let's take a look at this. Now I've shown you this chart several times. If you watch my channel regularly, you've already seen this. And this is basically taking all what we call store of value assets: Bitcoin, gold, collectibles, equities, real estate, bonds, money. So all of what we call store of value assets. And it's predicting how much that basket will grow until the end of the decade, 2030, and it's based off of the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, predicting how much debt, how much deficit spending, the budget, all of that, and it predicts that based off of that. And per this, I'm putting a price target of $21 trillion on Bitcoin's market cap by 2030, which means it's about $1 million per Bitcoin, or about a 10x from here, an 8x from here, something like that. So A good company should do 2 or 3x or more than that. So if Bitcoin goes up 10x, they can go up 20x or 30x. Okay, that's by 2030. What about if we look at by 2040? Again, this is based off of the Congressional Budget's Office numbers. And by 2040, it puts Bitcoin at about a $289 trillion market cap, or $14 million per coin. And a good company should do 2, 3, or 5x that. So that's what we're looking for Bitcoin, and we're looking at even more for these really good companies. So for me, they're buys and holds. Now, I said good companies. Not every company is a good company, so you want to make sure you buy the right company. If you'd like my treasury report cards, you can understand how to determine a good company versus a bad company.
Bitcoin Treasury Companies have emerged as high-leverage instruments for gaining amplified exposure to digital assets. MicroStrategy, with over 639,000 BTC acquired at an average price of $73,971, operates as a leveraged Bitcoin proxy and a key gauge of institutional sentiment. Its stock frequently trades above net asset value, creating opportunities for traders through directional bets and pairs trading against Bitcoin. These companies offer substantial upside potential but also significantly amplified downside risk, requiring careful portfolio allocation and long-term commitment. For investors capable of managing this volatility, Bitcoin Treasury Companies represent some of the most compelling asymmetric opportunities in the cryptocurrency market today. If Bitcoin hits $1 million by 2030, which Bitcoin Treasury Company do you think will outperform the most and why? Bitcoin moves at lightning speed. Share your thoughts in the comments, spread this with your network, and hit subscribe to stay ahead of the next major market move.